Hey guys, welcome to my channel Miss Recap. Our story begins with Seiji, an ordinary high school boy who one day gets a visit from a Shinigami, claiming that he must kiss someone immediately or die in 24 hours. Seiji of course immediately dismisses this crazy girl, until she proves herself to have supernatural powers. And once he agrees to let her in, she explains that his name has been written in the kiss note, which means he has to kiss someone in the next 24 hours, or death will soon follow. However, Seiji misunderstands this as the strange girl asking him for a little smooch. But despite his embarrassment, he quickly realizes that no smart man would ever pass up such an opportunity with a cutie. To his surprise, however, the Shinigami has absolutely no reaction to this, which kind of offends him. She then further explains that in order for his life to be spared, a name must be written next to Seiji's in the kiss note, which will cause both of them to embrace one another and fall in love, a power that the crazy girl loves to use on men. Wanting to avoid being forced into a similar fate, Seiji agrees to take his new pet to school so they can find a girl's name to write down. That's when Seiji sees Akane, a beautiful and popular girl with a tremendous personality, who approaches Seiji as soon as she sees him. And as the two talk, the Shinigami reassures Seiji that only he can see her, and attempts to prove this by pulling a prank on Akane. But rather than get embarrassed, an angry Akane questions who the weird girl in the strange cosplay is. And before he has a chance to fully explain this insane situation, Akane goes into a jealous rage, as she blames Seiji for cheating on her even though they're not dating, and threatens to kill both of them. But thankfully only Seiji's immortal shield is struck by her knife, before the two run away in fear. Once they finally find a place to hide, Seiji reveals that he actually had a crush on the pure and innocent Akane, but had never seen this monstrous side of her before. Their conversation is soon interrupted by Akane's knife, after she finds them again. Suddenly, however, tears begin streaming down Akane's face, as she reveals that she always knew that Seiji had a crush on her, and that all this time she was patiently waiting for him to someday confess to her. But Seiji reveals that he never thought he had a chance with such a beautiful girl. That's when Akane reveals that he really did have a chance, which makes him really happy. Until she reveals that he ruined his chances by cheating on her with another girl, which Akane plans to kill. But despite barely knowing the Shinigami, Seiji refuses, still attempts to protect her with his body. And suddenly, Akane's anger is put to an end, thanks to the Shinigami adding Akane's name next to Seiji in the kiss note. She then further explains that she's actually not a god of death, but rather an angel of love named Guri, who simply enjoys cosplaying as a hobby, and that when two names are written in the kiss note, those two people are destined to marry each other and be together forever. A truth which makes Akane incredibly happy, but terrifies Seiji as his now supposedly future wife is an absolute psycho. But to make matters worse, Guri suddenly adds her own name to the kiss note too, so she can also be bonded with them forever, which Akane is not too happy about. Thankfully, being bonded with an angel has granted Seiji immortality, but unfortunately that doesn't stop him from feeling pain. The next day, Seiji wakes up hoping that yesterday's events were just a dream. But he's horrified to find out that Guri has now started living with him after using some kind of hypnosis device on his parents, and allowing her boss, Corley, to temporarily take over the body of Seiji's cat. Wanting to get as far away from these freaks as possible, Seiji heads to school, but his problems persist as he's immediately approached by Akane, who proceeds to stab him over and over again, while a strange girl watches from afar. And things continue to go bad for Seiji, when later that day the strange girl steals the kiss note, and Seiji is forced to chase her all around school. When they finally catch up to her, Akane also arrives with murderous intent, but Seiji manages to disarm her by calling Akane by her first name, which he had never done before. It's later revealed that the strange girl is actually Yuzu, Akane's half-sister, and that she's in love with Akane, and hoped that she could use the kiss note to turn the two into a couple. A dream which is of course immediately crushed by Akane's refusal. However, things soon get even weirder when Guri ends up writing Yuzu's name on the kiss note as well, bonding all four of them for life as part of Seiji's harem. The next day, Yuzu is creepily stalking Akane from outside her house, when Guri suddenly interrupts her out of nowhere, and tells Yuzu that she wants to get to know her better as she finds her intriguing. Meanwhile, Seiji is assaulted by Akua, his little sister, just as Akane arrives to witness this. But she's stopped from ripping Akua's head off when Seiji explains that she's his little sister, which immediately changes Akane's behavior as she introduces herself to Akua as Seiji's future wife. In response, Akua states her disgust for her brother and storms off. Once Seiji and Akane arrive at school, they find that Guri and Yuzu are running some sort of love consultation club, where they're secretly pairing students with their crushes by writing their names together in the kiss note. Upon seeing this, Seiji immediately puts an end to this by confiscating the kiss note, and lectures Guri on the dangers of playing with people's hearts so nonchalantly. And after Seiji and Akane leave, Yuzu questions Guri about why she even hangs around a loser like Seiji in the first place. But Guri responds that, despite being an angel, she knows absolutely nothing about love, and feels that she'll learn more about it by being with Seiji. Shortly after, Guri and Yuzu find a love poem that was secretly written by Kusunoki, a teacher at their school, who unfortunately enters the room just as the two troublemakers were reading his poem. Kusunoki is soon left even more embarrassed when Marie, his love interest, enters the room with Seiji and Akane and begins lecturing her sensei on his inappropriate appearance, before fixing his outfit herself. This leads Yuzu and Seiji to realize that Kusunoki has feelings for Marie, but due to the forbiddenness of a teacher and student relationship, the gang decides to hold a meeting to discuss how to proceed with helping their love blossom. Surprisingly, all the girls believe that Kusunoki and Marie would make a great couple, but Seiji thinks he should first figure out how Marie feels, while Yuzu and Guri investigate Kusunoki to learn more about him so they can help him get his feelings across. But this just leads a flustered Kusunoki to run away. And shortly after, he accidentally spots Seiji talking with Marie, where he overhears her saying that it would be inappropriate for a teacher and student to date, and that she sees him more as a little brother. After school, Guri comes up with some sort of master plan to kidnap Marie so Kusunoki can come rescue her, which she says will make Marie fall in love with him. But her plan is quickly foiled when Marie instantly recognizes her, and to make matters worse, they're both suddenly held hostage by real bank robbers. When Yuzu later arrives at the scene, she mistakenly believes this to be a part of Guri's plan, and begins encouraging Kusunoki to fight for his love by defeating the bank robbers, who for some reason just stand there confused as they listen to Yuzu's speech, until they get angry and point their weapons at their hostages, but neither girl seems to care. Marie soon also finds herself joining in on Yuzu's speech, by encouraging Kusunoki to do his best, and even creates an opening for him to take down the robbers. This proves useless however, as Kusunoki's punch is far too weak. But that doesn't stop Marie from praising his bravery, while once again ignoring the bank robbers right behind them. Suddenly, Akane arrives, and upon seeing her future husband's life being threatened, she proceeds to savagely beat the bank robbers, as the rest of the crowd, and even the cops, watch in horror. After the day is saved, Kusunoki gains the courage to tell Marie to someday listen to his love confession, when they're no longer student and teacher. Surprisingly, Marie cuts him off and says that that was always the plan, and that she figured Kusunoki would confess to her after she graduates. Later that day, Marie reveals to Seiji that she actually fell in love with Kusunoki a long time ago, and has been slowly seducing him ever since, leading Seiji to view her as a bit of a manipulative devil. And he also realizes that they don't actually need the kiss note to guarantee this couple's future together, which bums out Guri. Meanwhile, Akua is watching all of this unfold from afar. Later that night, Akua dreams about a memory from her childhood where her brother saved her from some strange creature. But when she wakes up the next morning, she learns from Guri that her brother now has 3 girlfriends, and punishes him by scraping toothpaste in his eyes. Later that day on her way to school, the strange creature from Akua's dream appears, and begins chasing after her and the other girls. But while Yuzu immediately runs away, Akua is too scared to even move a muscle. When Seiji later learns about the strange creature's return, he immediately runs to save his little sister, and finds her hiding in the same tree she did when they were younger. Meanwhile, Guri immediately begins to laugh when she realizes that the scary creature chasing them is actually just a silly penguin, who immediately makes her regret her words by knocking her out. Seiji then begs Akua to jump into his arms, which she proceeds to do, recreating the moment from their childhood, while the penguin is knocked out and taken away by riot police. At the end of the day, Seiji carries his sister back home, as the two reminisce about their childhood. But just as Seiji thought he was finally getting along with his sister again, she hits him and runs away embarrassed, leaving him confused once more. The next day, Guri requests that Seiji take her out on a date, so she can learn more about love. And although they actually end up having a fun time together, their date is soon interrupted when they come across a man arguing with several women, who accuse him of cheating. When one of the women attacks the man, he attempts to retaliate, but is immediately stopped by Seiji. However, this white knight attempt quickly backfires as Seiji finds himself in the middle of the violent quarrel. And to make matters worse, the kiss note is accidentally burned in the process. When Seiji and Guri then return home, they ask Coralie about what to do next. But he admits that he has no idea since the kiss note has never been destroyed before, while throwing shade at Guri for being such an incompetent angel. One consequence that is clear, however, is that Akane and Seiji are no longer immortal, and that Seiji is now free from his weird harem of psychotic girls. The next day at school, however, Akane ignores Seiji throughout the day, which leads him to believe that she has lost all feelings for him as a side effect of the kiss note burning. But when they investigate this belief by finding all the other couples that Guri had created with the kiss note, which of course are all men, the gang realizes that they're still in love despite the kiss note burning. Thankfully, Guri receives a brand new kiss note in the form of a smartphone, just as a furious Akane sprints towards Seiji with murderous intent, but smooches him instead, much to his surprise. She then explains that she had ignored him because she read in a magazine that it would make her boyfriend go crazy and chase after her, but she's now angry at Seiji for not doing so. She then proceeds to stab Seiji, who is no longer immortal, but to his surprise, he doesn't die, as it turns out that Guri had once again written all of their names in her new kiss note, once more binding all four into Seiji's weird harem. The next day at school, Guri and Seiji are approached by Shikimi, who requests their help with matters of the heart, but she seemingly doesn't know the name of her crush, which prevents Guri from using the kiss note to help. Later that same day, Seiji unfortunately catches a cold, and Akane's attempt to help causes envy and hatred from the other guys in class. After school, Seiji meets up with Shikimi on his own due to Guri being nowhere to be found. And while walking with Shikimi, Seiji accidentally reveals that he and his harem are actually completely immortal. Meanwhile, Guri realizes that her kiss note is missing. At that same time, the gullible Seiji continues to follow Shikimi to some ruined factory that would only attract a homicidal maniac, which Shikimi soon proves herself to be, as she reveals her true identity as a pink-haired psycho who's just my type, and begins hurting Seiji to learn how Guri is able to grant immortality. Elsewhere, Guri tells Akane and Yuzu about the missing kiss note and Seiji's sudden disappearance, as well as their conversation with Shikimi. Hearing this name causes Akane to fill with rage, and Yuzu to tremble in fear as it's revealed that Shikimi is actually their cousin. While Shikimi continues to interrogate Seiji, Akane suddenly arrives at their location and somehow gets in by breaking a hole through a concrete wall. But despite her impressive strength, Akane still finds herself restrained by Shikimi's strange power. Thankfully, Yuzu arrives just in time to stop this from escalating, followed by Guri, who is in a crab costume for some reason. Upon seeing her, Shikimi immediately returns the kiss note and begs Guri to add her to Seiji's harem because she claims to be madly in love with him, while making sure the others' mouths are shut to prevent them from interrupting. However, Guri surprisingly refuses this request, as she senses that Shikimi is completely devoid of love. Suddenly, Shikimi receives a mysterious phone call from Akane's mother and leaves shortly after, but not before promising to someday join Seiji's harem. Shortly after, Seiji is revealed to not be breathing, and moments later, he wakes up in heaven, where he meets with Corley, who takes him to see a clumsy old geezer named Kami, who is the current god and Guri's father. As they talk, Kami explains to Seiji that Guri will replace him as the new god someday, and tasks Seiji to teach his daughter all about true love. Meanwhile, Akane sobs over Seiji's death and even threatens to join him. Back in heaven, Seiji and Kami's talk is interrupted by Mao, the current ruler of Hell, who reveals that he actually wants Guri to be his successor rather than Kami's, as she is actually a half-demon half-angel. But after some thinking, Seiji says he believes Guri would not be interested in either position, seeing as she's far too free-spirited. Both Kami and Mao agree that she's still far too immature, and Kami sends Seiji back to Earth to teach Guri about true love. Meanwhile, Yuzu kneels down to give a dying Seiji CPR, but he instead bangs his head against hers upon coming back to life. He's then immediately hugged by Akane so tightly that she almost sends him back to heaven. A few days later, Guri makes Seiji, Yuzu, and Akane attend a school horror event that takes place at night, where they run into all kinds of weird and scary things, including a creepy couple who insists that they must hunt ghosts together to prove their love to one another. When the gang then runs away from what seems to be actual ghosts, Akane and Guri end up alone on the school rooftop, where Akane asks Guri if she truly loves Seiji. But Guri's uncertainty makes Akane furious, as she tells her to stay away from Seiji from now on. Meanwhile, Yuzu, who's with Seiji, turns out to be too scared to even move her legs. So Seiji offers to carry her, which she reluctantly agrees to, and the two share a little wholesome moment. Later on, as the horror event comes to an end, Guri thinks back to what Akane said, and begins to feel troubled by her own feelings. Sometime later, Guri invites Seiji to go to a festival with her, but becomes angry when Seiji refuses because she's already made other plans with Akane and Yuzu. But while blowing off some steam at a bookstore, Guri encounters a kind-hearted and handsome guy, who surprisingly asks her on a date. And despite agreeing to go out with him, throughout the date, Guri finds herself constantly comparing the guy with Seiji. And because Seiji refused to go with her, Guri invites her date to the festival instead. But while watching the fireworks at the festival with her new man, the guy tries to kiss her, but she rejects him because she can't stop thinking about Seiji. And a few moments after ditching her date, Guri bumps into Seiji, who surprisingly decided to come to the festival to make her happy. And despite Seiji's many flaws, Guri throws herself at him, after realizing that she's happiest when they're together. It's later revealed that her stud from earlier was actually under mind control by Mao, who was trying to ruin the relationship between Seiji and Guri. Sometime later, Guri and Akane bicker and fight over Seiji outside school, but Akane is the one who ends up walking inside with him, while Guri is left behind. Once in class, however, Seiji and Akane unfortunately learn that Shikimi is now an official student at their school, as she was ordered by Akane's mother to keep an eye on Seiji. Later that same day, Yuzu embraces Seiji at the stairwell, in order to convince herself that she feels nothing for him, despite her conflicted feelings. At the end of the day, however, Yuzu claims that she detests Seiji, but no longer hates him. A few days later, Seiji is happy to have the house to himself for the first time in ages, after Akua leaves for a sleepover, only for Akane, Guri, Yuzu, and Shikimi to show up unannounced at his house, one after the other. And after spending a long and exhausting day with the girls, Seiji tries to take a bath to ease his mind. But his privacy is rudely interrupted. Later that night, the girls sleep in Seiji's bedroom, while he sleeps in the living room. But when he wakes up the next morning, he finds that all 4 girls have moved into the living room with him. And when Akua returns from her sleepover, she punishes Seiji at the sight of him and his harem. Sometime later, Guri is revealed to have been missing for over a week, which Akane greatly enjoys as this allows her to spend more quality time with Seiji. But suspecting that Shikimi is somehow responsible, Seiji confronts her in the school's locker room, where she captures him instead and proceeds to playfully torture him, while Guri secretly watches from outside. In a flashback, it's revealed that Guri had previously confided in Shikimi that there was something missing between her and Seiji, which led Shikimi to suggest to Guri to avoid Seiji and observe his relationship with the other girls. And while watching their interactions, Guri feels a pain in her heart. Back in the present, Akane and Yuzu soon arrive to save Seiji, while Shikimi reveals the new depressed Guri to the others, who has transformed into her demonic form. After Mao and Shikimi manipulated Seiji into breaking Guri's heart, she then nonchalantly announces that her old self is gone, and it is all Seiji's fault. She leaves shortly after and spends the rest of the day breaking up the many couples that she had brought together with her kiss note while being an angel. Meanwhile, Yuzu convinces Seiji to join her in saving Guri, but Akane refuses to accompany them, as she perceives Guri as her love rival, and would be happy to see her disappear. Without wasting any time, however, Coralie takes Seiji and Yuzu to heaven, where Kami suggests that they travel to hell in order to retrieve Guri. Meanwhile in hell, Guri refuses Mao's request to become the new devil, which makes Mao think back to the time that Guri's mother had retired as the devil in order to marry Kami and eventually give birth to Guri. Elsewhere, Seiji, Yuzu and Coralie are able to sneak through hell undetected by disguising themselves as business people, but they're soon uncovered by Shikimi, which forces all of them to flee. They are rescued by Akane shortly after, however, who was able to reach hell after being literally shocked to death at the thought of Seiji being married and having kids with someone other than her. And after finally reaching Guri, Seiji pleads with her to return to normal. But despite Guri's claims that her old cheerful self is dead, she finds herself accidentally bantering with Seiji like before, which makes him realize that Guri has not fully transformed into a demon yet. Meanwhile, Shikimi takes pleasure in watching Guri suffer and become cast out of the harem, just as she was. And while trying to process her conflicting feelings and overwhelming emotions, Guri faints, and Seiji jumps off the office building to catch her. Moments later, her demon wings are replaced with angel wings as she returns to normal, after finally realizing that her conflicting emotions were caused by her desire to not only love Seiji, but to have him love her back. Their heartfelt moment is then abruptly ended by Akane throwing a knife at Guri's head, followed by Guri making an insane promise to someday add Shikimi to Seiji's harem if she behaves, which Shikimi agrees to, further enraging Akane. And the next morning, Seiji heads to school with all 4 girls, killing any hope that he might have left about his peaceful future. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.